Hello Algebra 1 students, welcome to section 8-9, the quadratic formula and discriminant. Before this section guys, you studied how to solve quadratic equation by graphing and also by factoring. Today you're going to learn a new method of solving quadratic equation. You're going to learn how to solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. Also in this section you're going to learn how to determine the number of solutions using something is called the discriminant. Let's talk about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a is considered one of the most famous formulas in algebra ever. It helps us to find the solutions of a quadratic equation written in the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0 using the coefficients a, b, and c of the quadratic equation. Why the formula has plus or minus, guys? You know from your previous study that the maximum number of solutions for a quadratic equation is 2 solutions. So the plus for one possibility and the minus for the other solution possibility. Let's practice how to use the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation. The very important condition before you start applying the quadratic formula is to make sure that the equation is written in the standard form. Guys, a quadratic equation in the standard form has to start with the highest power of x, and you go in descending order of the power of x. So x to the power 2 at first, x to the power 1, and the constant, and the equation has to be set equal to 0. Once the equation is ready, you need to identify the constants a, b, and c. Guys, you know a is the coefficient of x squared and it's going to be 6. B is the coefficient of x and it's going to be 5. C is the coefficient or the constant which is negative 4. So C equals negative 4. Now the quadratic formula x equals big fraction bar negative b plus or minus, we talked about plus or minus before, square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Now guys, substitute in this formula, so x gonna be equal my fraction bar negative b. B is 5 and the negative b is gonna be negative 5 plus or minus, temporarily guys I'm gonna put plus or minus, the square root of b squared, it means 5 squared. I prefer to put any value raised to the power 2 or any other power in parentheses. Guys, sometimes this value is negative, so if you don't draw the parentheses it's gonna be wrong value. So keep this habit and put anything raised to any power inside parentheses. Minus 4 times a, the value of a is 6, times c, the value of c is negative 4. Since it's a negative number, I'm gonna put it inside parentheses, guys, over 2a. 2 times the value of a is 6. I advise my students to use the calculator. Guys, you may spend long time and a lot of effort, and because of a calculation mistake you might get the problem wrong, so I advise you to double check with the calculator. Now how can we put the whole thing on the calculator? Guys, the first possibility, we expect 2 zeros for this quadratic function. The first possibility, you use the plus sign, you put everything using the plus sign. The first option is to use the plus sign. Once you put it, you will get the answer, and the answer gonna be half. And when you use the negative sign another time, you copy everything on the calculator the same. This is not 2.6 guys, this is 2 times 6. You will get the other solution, and the other solution is gonna be negative 4 over 3. So guys, how many solutions of this quadratic function? There are 2 solutions, and the solutions are half and negative 4 over 3. Another example. My equation, my quadratic equation, x squared equals x plus 20, is not written in the standard form this time. To be written in the standard form, you have to set this equation is equal to 0. In order to create 0 on the left hand, on the right hand side, you need to add the opposite of negative x and the opposite of plus 20 to both sides. So I'm going to add minus x and minus 20 to undo this side, but you have to do the same for the opposite side, guys. Again, minus x and minus 20 to the left hand side. Now x and its opposite, 20 and its opposite, they cross out each other, and we left with 0 alone on the right hand side. On the left hand side, you need to write your equation in the standard form. Standard form, you start with the highest power of x, x to the power 2 minus x. We go in descending order, and minus 20. Now guys, you identify the values of a, b, and c. A, and this equation is equal to 1. The value of b is equal to negative 1, and the value of c is equal to negative 20. Using this information, I can write my quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, x equals, you remember guys, it's written in front of you, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Now substitute in this formula with the given information, with the information a, b, and c. So guys, big fraction bar, negative b is already negative number, so negative b is going to be negative 1. Negative 1 simplifies 1 plus or minus the square root of the following, guys. B squared, negative 1 squared. See guys, you have to put it in parentheses or you're gonna ruin the whole problem. Negative 1, you have to put it in parentheses. Negative 1 squared minus 4 times a is 1, so times 1, times c is negative 20. I'm gonna put any negative number in parentheses, negative 20, over 2a, 2 times 1. Guys, if you put the whole thing on the calculator with the plus sign one time, you will get one solution, and that solution going to be x equals 5. And if you try the negative sign another time, you will get the second solution, and the second solution going to be x equals negative 4. Guys, let's just go back and think about the solutions of this quadratic function. Graphically, what does it mean? It means if you represent this parabola graphically, there are 2 points of intersection. The parabola gonna intersect x-axis at 2 points. This is why we have 2 solutions, but not every time we end with 2 solutions. Sometimes we end with 1 solution when the parabola touches x-axis 1 time, and sometimes we experience something quite different. When the parabola doesn't intersect x-axis, there are no solutions. So guys, be aware of all possibilities. Using quadratic formula is a really nice thing. Guys, not every time the solution gonna be an integer or a fraction. Sometimes it is not even a rational number. A lot of decimals gonna appear when you calculate the radicals or the roots or the solutions using the quadratic formula. Take this example, guys. We're given a quadratic equation written in the standard form. A value is equal to 1, the number in front of x squared. B is equal to 3, and finally c is equal to negative 7. Quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Let's substitute in that formula. X equals big fraction bar, negative b, it's going to be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of the following. B squared, it's going to be 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 7. Put the negative 7 in parentheses, over 2a, 2 times 1. Guys, if you put that in the calculator, you would see two answers. When you use the plus sign, you would see one answer. When you put the negative sign, you would see the other answer. But this time my answer is not an integer, it is not a fraction, it's gonna be a non-rational number. So you need to round your answer to the nearest tenth or to the nearest hundredth. If we round this long answer to the nearest hundredth, it's gonna be 1.54. And when you try the negative sign, it's gonna be a very long decimal, and when you round this decimal, it's gonna be negative 4.54. So guys, enjoy using the quadratic function, and see you in the next part of this section. Bye.